Beyond.
Beyond.
That's
Yeah,
it.
no,
you
you got
did
it.
it.
We did it right.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Beyond episode. I didn't write it down. I think it's 482, but I might be wrong. I'm Max Scoville, and I'm joined by Brian Altano, Damon Hatfield,
Hello.
and Dan Stapleton. We have a great show lined up for today. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. There's Middle-earth: Shadow of War. That's a title we're going to be screwing up left and right. Ubisoft announced that they're working on an Avatar game, and I'm the only person who wants to talk about it. Battlefield 1 DLC has the Franche. And yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff to talk about, kind of bits and pieces trickling out over the course of the week. Of course, Horizon Zero Dawn is out this week. We talked about that extensively last week, but everyone here has played a bunch of it. What do you guys think? We haven't heard kind of your perspective on it.
Yeah, welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining
Thank you. No, I think everyone loves Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
It's like totally my kind of game. I love Tomb Raider games. I love Far Cry. I like exploring big open worlds and being able to tackle objectives at my own pace. So yeah, I love the game. I love the variety of things there are to do and the variety of tools you have at your disposal.
I think it actually has a fair bit of Mordor DNA in there as well.
Sure.
Like the whole domination thing and overriding things. Like that was one of my favorite parts about Mordor, and it's one of my favorite parts about this, being able to take over.
When you
a
hack
creature.
those dogs and rode up the side of a building.
I think it's a rarity to have an open world game that doesn't sort of begin to immediately fatigue you at every angle. Like, I think that the diversity in terms of like objectives, quests and stuff like that, all the things you can collect, like it's just enough that when you're like, I've spent too much time doing this, I can jump over to this. Like it feels fresh every single time. It's rare that I'll put 55 hours into an open world game and still feel like, oh, there's a lot I want to do.
Well, plus I think a big part of that variety is the combat is so different every fight, just because you can change how it plays out based on what area you're targeting. Like that to me is a not bottomless well, but really deep well of possibility for approaching combat encounters differently.
I think that
different enemy types and different weapons.
Yeah, and that coupled with the fact that there are the encounters that you experience in the open world are not scripted. They do not happen at the exact same time. Like you'll turn a corner and there'll be like 3 or 4 watchers that are corrupted and they're higher level and they're harder to fight. And you're like, do I want to take these guys down with ropes or slingshots or my weird bombs, all this other stuff. So yeah, it's cool. We had the devs in earlier today at a live stream, which you can check out. We'll put the archive up, and we were pretty spoiler free on that one. Yeah. So
did you get any cool breakouts from that or tidbits of?
So one of the things I found out was that they basically pitched this game 7 years ago.
Wow.
And we're like, yeah, that's not going to work. Like, we can't make that yet. I think they had the ambition for it. And it's also like aesthetically, it's completely different than anything Guerrilla's done before. If you look at the Killzone games, they're going for this very sort of like metal and glass look, which you get to see in a lot of the robots in this game. But in terms of that, like, weird, like open woodland Utah mountain, like all that kind of stuff. That's entirely new for them. So they spent a lot of time studying like sunrises and stuff to get the HDR just right.
They really knocked the robot design out of the park.
It's so cool.
Like, and the animation,
are awesome.
The animation and the way they move is just incredible.
Yeah, and I think they found this really good balance of the sort of stuff that we understand here. Like almost every enemy has like a real world counterpart where you're like, that's kind of a hyena.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a beetle.
Crocodile.
They spit Max.
Thing.
They specifically mentioned Zoids.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was
As
going to
being
say,
an
like,
influence.
I really hope they make toys from this game. And then I was like, oh, wait, they totally do.
Yeah. But
they
it's
have
like you were talking about, Max, about the crocodiles in this game don't react like crocodiles do in other video games. Like they're 100-foot-long nightmare
Can't just hop
monsters.
on their heads across the
Or put a stick in their mouth. They lunge at you and they leap in the air. So yeah, I think the design for the enemies in this game is really inspired. I'm really glad it's out in the wild. They seem very relieved that people love it. So
yeah, no, it's got to be such a wonderful thing of just shipping a game of that magnitude.
Yeah, and having it to get good reviews.
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly. So often these guys, developers are working on their games for years, and like a lot of them just fall in love with it and stop seeing the flaws.
Yep.
So it must be such a huge relief to put it out and have it like actually be right that it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the critics are going to love it, or critics love it, and I think the audience is really going to connect with it. So, what were you going to say, Damon?
One thing that irks me, it's a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but this is supposed to be taking place far in the future. And sort of society's sort of been knocked down a peg back down to a more primitive existence. But when the characters talk to each other, they just sound like people talking in the year 2017.
Yeah, that was kind of my problem too. Also, the fact that like a whole race of robot animals has evolved, but you still have like regular ass like woodland critters, and
there's three regular animals left.
No, I forgot
So that gets explained.
Okay.
It's still goofy.
Yeah,
like it's still very video game.
I think we were joking about this, but I forget if this is on the show or not. But the idea that this is like M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, and like there's like a Burning Man festival, and somebody has like really bad spyware on their phone, and like, oh man, my robot dinosaur I built that shoots flames, it's gone out of control. And you go over a ridge, and there's just like cars driving by, and you're like, oh, well, crap. We kind of got carried away there. That was a little bit much Molly.
You just spoiled the ending of the game, man.
Did I?
Yeah.
There's cars?
Yeah, you come over a ridge and there's a highway. And
I think I went off about how I wish that it had cars, and you were like, just shut up. Just shut up.
Well, you're like, I don't like this game. It has towns like The Witcher and a map like Far Cry. And I'm like, you're just describing video games.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of video games, Middle-earth Shadow of War got wonderfully announced by Target.
Yep. Thanks, Target.
Thanks, Target.
My favorite gaming site, Target, the store.
Another retail site just straight snitching.
Yeah, but the good news is, this is coming sooner than we, I think, expected. It's August 22nd stateside and 25th in Europe. It's going to be PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Project Scorpio. Presumably also PS4 Pro, I'm guessing, because, I mean, Shadow of Mordor runs on Pro, right?
Yep. Yeah,
everything going forward is supposed to do it, right?
Yeah,
right.
But that one specifically got a patch to make it run better. I re-downloaded it because it was in some sort of flash sale for like $7.
It was like one of the first things that we got when we got the PS4 Pro review units in. Was Shadow of Mordor was one of the first things to be ready to go on that.
Yep.
So that looked fantastic.
Yeah, and for a game that's what 3-4 years old now.
Yeah,
like
I
it's a
think
couple
3 years,
3 years old.
Yeah. But then, of course, to follow this up, WB Games and Monolith basically just, they were like, oh, cat's out of the bag. Whoops. So here's what's going on with it. There's an improved Nemesis system. Obviously, that was a huge part of the last game.
It was the part.
Yeah, it was the part. That was the thing that really set it apart, aside
Still
from
not really any other game that does that.
I'm kind of amazed. I remember like years ago we were covering this and we were like, every game's got to steal this, and no one did.
Yeah.
Not in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it kind of goes all the way back to like Sid Meier's Pirates,
Yep.
like that kind of idea of these other actors out there. But man, that game was such a surprise.
Yeah.
Like I still remember seeing it at E3 when it was announced. Like I went in, like I was there to see Batman.
Yeah.
And
Well,
like,
you kind of saw Batman, like medieval Lord of the Rings Batman.
but it was being shown right next to Batman, and it was like a long line to see Arkham Knight. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check out this Lord of the Rings game. And I came out game of show. Like it was,
Right.
it was incredible.
Well, what sucked was when it came out, it got kind of mired up in controversy because it was this whole thing where YouTubers were getting paid to like give it, like good buzz.
Yeah, that's not the game's fault. That was
Yeah,
just
totally. But I mean, between
marketer.
that and then this getting announced by way of a leak, it's just, I feel like they just have bad luck in terms of like how their stuff kind of gets out there in the wild. But yeah, the thing that's cool about this is the Nemesis system has now been applied to the entire world. That's, I think, the angle here. And we've
You
only
can have like bees that hate you.
I think the bees will learn to hate you in time.
There were bees in the
Yeah.
game.
It's one of my favorite weapons in video game history.
Oh, no,
is just
I love that.
Throwing a bag of bees at a dude.
That was
He's
great.
like, oh, hate bees.
I love those bees. But yeah, like they showed some kind of like humans, like regular people in the CG trailer, which honestly looks like a pretty regular ass trailer. It's pretty, but it doesn't really tell us much about the game. But I think the idea that there are proper like, big human settlements, not just a bunch of orcs running around and like having grog and hanging out with their bees. But yeah, like the last game, I totally forgot about this, was also developed for last gen.
Sort of.
And
It didn't have Nemesis.
It didn't have the
Yeah.
Nemesis system. It looked terrible.
that was another kind of controversy, I think, about the release.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh wait, the last gen version didn't have the Nemesis system.
Yeah.
Nope.
And
Yeah.
it looked really gross.
Right?
That's really funny. So like, what every new enemy was like, "Oh, it's nice to meet you." Like, no, we're enemies. We know
Of
each
all
other.
the things to cut out, like I wouldn't expect that to be something that really required a lot of processing power, because like when you look at it, what it is, like it's not, they're not all actually out there. you know?
Yeah.
It's just this kind of low level simulation.
Even Telltale games are like Clementine will remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't seem like I'm not an engineer, but
Yep.
like I'm surprised they had to take that out.
That's funny.
But I remember booting that thing up on 360 and PS3, and wow, like it looked terrible. All the textures were just a smear, and then they would go into a pre-rendered cutscene, which was just gameplay from the PS4. And
I'm
Xbox One
so
version.
it always feels like training wheels the first year or two into a generation, where you're like I feel like we're kind of being held back by the last platforms, and now it's just very nice to just sort of like openly breathe current gen without having to worry about anything else.
For sure. The original game actually looks really good on PS4 Pro.
Yeah. Yep.
So I can't wait to see how this sequel is going to
Yeah,
look.
for sure.
Xbox Scorpio and PS4.
And they've had they've had
that's
time
right.
to really get under the hood and screw around with it, and they're not being held back by last gen. And I mean also, they know that the Nemesis system is a thing that people enjoy. They're they're not kind of flying blind here.
And somehow it's still their exclusive.
Yeah.
So.
The interesting thing about this game is that Dan, one of you guys just referred to it as like a Lord of the Rings game, basically.
Yeah, I was gonna.
To me, it's like. I'm one of those weird nerds that doesn't really have any connection to that lore. I just never really connected with it. I've seen the movies; they're fine. I'm okay. I'm more of a Star Wars dude.
You hate the Lord of the Rings movies?
They're not great to watch.
They're actually they're great to watch.
Yeah, I mean,
they're really great.
I respectfully disagree.
Yeah, I everyone does. I'm alone on this one. That's fine. But that being said,
I love how you're like, yeah. I mean, I don't love them, and like you hate them. Yeah, they suck.
I don't love them. No, I don't think they're great movies. They make I don't know.
The Hobbit movies
those
are not
all
great movies. Are you sure you just saw the Hobbit movies?
No, I've actually only seen the first half of one of the Hobbit movies,
That's more than enough.
which is like 1/4 Hobbit.
Did you get to the part
That's
where
all
they
the movies
sing
should
while
have
washing dishes?
No, that sounds fun.
It's pretty great. They all
It's like
just,
hour 10.
But that being said, I loved Shadow of Mordor because I feel like all of that stuff was sort of background elements. It was window dressing. Like you saw that guy, who's that? Gollum, whatever, Schmeagol, whatever his name is.
Same guy.
Same guy.
Gollum Schmeagol.
It's the same thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Same
So pick a name.
Just like Anakin and Darth Vader. Think of it that way.
Sort of different, but yeah, close enough.
Okay.
you
Did
know.
they make
Trying to
one
put
where
it in terms Brian will
Did they make a
appreciate.
movie where Gollum has to ride a bicycle and win a race? So I would watch that. But that being said, I could easily sort of just pass by the window dressing, didn't really read up on the lore, could skip through cutscenes, and then really enjoy the game for what it was. It was a really fun action adventure game.
Yep.
That being said, everything they've shown us for this game so far is very, very like lore. There was just like, this is the lore. And I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Except like if you're a hardcore Tolkien guy, none of this stuff works. None of it.
Really?
works.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of we've got to accept this as kind of the Arkham City of Tolkien. You know, like there's a lot of stuff that happens in the Arkham games that is taking liberties with the source material, and of course that's all superhero, so it's constantly being iterated on.
Yep.
There's nothing canon here. Like you're going to be making up your own characters. Like my nemesis in the last one was called like Kaka the wrestler. Mostly because I thought he was so great that I had to keep him living. He was cross-eyed. He had a really pointy hat.
Yeah.
And then I just every time he'd show up, I'd be like, oh, this guy's he's gonna get one under me. I mean, it's just,
When he showed up, did they chant "Ka?"
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. Like I got a bunch of orcs. He's gonna poop. But yeah, like that's not a character that Tolkien created. That was procedurally generated by the Nemesis
But
system.
it doesn't even really fit in with like magic is supposed to be super duper rare outside of actual wizards like Gandalf.
Yeah, but you got ghost poisoning or whatever, and you can do super jumps.
Right. So you've got your wraith buddy. Who
Wraith finds.
Yeah,
Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor.
Yeah, and you've got all this magic that you're just not supposed to have in that universe. So they are taking a bunch of liberties. I look at it much like the Arkham games, where it's like, hey, this is our own spin on the Lord of the Rings universe.
Right.
It doesn't really matter.
This is an excuse to beat up some orcs.
So now the first game
Ride a
pretty
dog.
much only had 2 major settings, and one of them, it was like a 70-30 sort of like you spent most of the time in one of them, and then you got to that weird kind of like island jungular paradise towards the end.
Oh, Mordor, yeah.
Yeah, whatever you nerds call it.
I think it was like Mordor and like West Mordor or something.
Yeah.
There's a part of Mordor that was still green.
Okay. Got it. Do you guys think we're going to see more like in this? Like, I don't actually know the lore, so I don't.
They're not calling it Shadow of Mordor 2. They're calling it Shadow of War. So
Why are they not calling it Shadow of Mordor?
That's really good.
What about Middle Earth 2, even Mordor?
But yeah, so they can go anywhere is the point.
Okay, good.
It's no longer bound to this has to be in Mordor.
So I might like it more.
Or
Awful.
Hold the Mordor.
That's something I'm excited about because like Mordor is like, I mean, it's conceptually awesome. It's a hellscape, but as far as being a place you're stuck in for 40 hours, it does kind of get tiresome. So to see some foliage is nice. I don't know. Like I was kind of hoping we'd see some other Lord of the Rings territories, like some Gondor, like the Mines of Moria or something. And we might still, but like. I think they're kind of going to have like, here's your playground, go nuts.
What about Bergendorf the Ancient?
Yeah,
I
do.
You want to see Mordor? You want to see Gondor? You want to see all the doors?
Yeah, Hodor and the Roham and the Rohirrim and the
One thing I'm really hoping to see out of this is more of
The door?
Yes.
So easy.
Not mild spoiler for Shadow of Mordor here, but one of the climactic battles before the bad boss battle at the end that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
But
Before door.
yes, the penultimate battle is this actual big large scale war where you've got all of your war chiefs behind you, and you go up against a bunch of of guys, and you all just charge and meet in the middle and fight it out. And that was fantastic. I want to see more large scale battles like that.
It sounds like that's what they're doing.
Shadow of War, so.
Especially if they get they've got other races in there. They got some men, some elves, some dwarves. That'd be great. Just like have them all fight each other. So there's something about making AI fight other AI.
Oh, totally.
That's great.
I just love.
It's great. I hope you can just unleash like a million bees on all of them.
Yeah, that'd be great. This is my war chief, the beehive that I drew a face on. It's very angry. No, that does seem like kind of the big angle here. Is it's not just about you kind of being one guy, but you really are building an army. Like you're kind of becoming a general. There are Nazgul and Fellbeasts, which are those like the dark riders who fly around on like hairless hawk dinosaur things. Those kick ass. I want to see those in the video game. So that seems like a good thing. Does that the thing that the lady cuts the head off? Remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
She is no man.
Yeah. Damn right. But
Forgot about that part. I think I was peeing.
Yeah. Honestly, if you just come by my house like anytime over like Christmas break, I'd probably be watching Lord of the Rings
Thanksgiving and
movies.
Christmas is a really good time to watch those movies.
You just put them on. You drink and talk over them, and you're like, "Why is that man there?" And you're like, "I don't know. He fell in a hole, and they got to get him out, and he's fighting a dragon." And you're like, "Oh, it's a good movie. Good,
I
18 Oscars."
I assume these are the extended editions.
Oh God, yeah. You're like, why are they kissing? Oh, she's an elf. Okay, your dad hates him.
You can just go on forever. It's fine.
Yeah,
You've got a lot of drinking to do, so you need it in the background for a long time.
yeah. But we're going to get a gameplay reveal on March 8th, which is cool. I think there was preview event today. I don't know. We're going to get...
there's something going on here at GDC.
Yeah. So that's cool. I'm glad that
the best part is like this is out in August.
Yeah, I think people really appreciate a game announcement like this. I think they're really sick of the Mass Effect, Andromeda, Last Guardian, Final Fantasy 15, No Man's Sky, just games that just take years and years and years to come out. So
Yeah, like let me know a thing exists and then let me play it within a few months is a perfect scenario
It's
for
the
me.
Fallout 4 move.
Yeah.
Yep.
for sure.
So in exactly the opposite of what you just said you'd like to see more of, Ubisoft announced this morning that there's going to be a new an Avatar game.
Speaking of movies on at Max's house all the time.
What? It's a good... Anyway. In the Facebook group, Ankit Mantra said, does anyone care about Avatar? And I would say, maybe. Some people
Someone does.
One out of 4 of us.
So honestly, I don't know why I think I got a Blu-ray player or I got like a nice TV and I was like, I want to watch Avatar on this. So I bought Avatar and then it just became this thing I would put on whenever I was like, I want to look at something cool. Like I basically treated my living room like a Best Buy where I was like, I want to show off colors on my TV. So I'd put on this stupid cat movie and then you'd come over and you'd be like, why are you watching Avatar? I'm like, because it's funny. Those cats are up there. They're doing dinosaur stuff in the woods.
It's very odd to see this get announced in 2017. This is like announcing like a Wii bowling movie in 2017.
Yeah.
I mean, they are coming out with more Avatar movies eventually, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's fine because I think they're hunting for that money that they got the first time around. But Avatar was such a specific sort of like time capsule of what was happening that year in terms of like cinemas and 3D and
there already was an Avatar game.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, and it was real bad.
It was
Ubisoft.
bad.
Is that also from Ubisoft?
Yeah.
Remember James Cameron came out that Ubisoft
during
press
E3,
conference
right?
right before this movie came out, and he got on stage and he just rambled. I remember being like, "Oh my god, it's the guy that made Terminator 2 and Aliens. This is gonna be great." And he came on stage and he was like, "So space peacocks, let's talk." And then an hour and a half later, I was like, "How long is this day?"
to be fair, Ubisoft has gotten a lot better at making open world games since then.
And press conferences.
Well, also, we've reached a point where I think that it's licensed games don't really get made unless there's something going for them.
Yeah.
We get stuff like Arkham and Shadow of Mordor now, as opposed to like, oh, it's the Return of the King hack and slash movie available this fall. It's like they're not just crapping this out theoretically.
Yeah.
They've announced that it's going to be from Massive, the guys who did Division, running in the Snowdrop engine.
So is this going to be The Division with really big trees or Far Cry with blue cats?
I hope it's Far Cry. I really hope it's like multiplayer Far Cry with cat people.
Because if it's like hunting nightmare alien monsters in a lush jungle, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much I care about
it's got to be Far Cry Assassin's Creed because it can't be a first-person game.
You don't
No,
think so?
but
If you're playing as a blue cat.
It can't be.
Why not?
It can't be a tactical cat game. Also, it's Avatar. It's a thing that appeals to like the biggest, dumbest audience of people like me. So it
Wait,
makes
I
more
want
sense.
it to be first person so I don't have to see these things.
Yeah.
You don't want to see your
Just
blue
see like
I
a
really
just,
don't like
meowing.
looking at those things.
You don't want to
That
see
was
your blue cat
a
thong?
major problem with the movies. I don't want to look at anyone.
It's just gonna. It's
That's
weird
such
'cause
an IGN.com quote. I really don't like looking at those things.
I do like that they showed like in this they put out this video this morning. It was like a bunch of the devs being like, yeah, we liked Avatar. It was pretty cool. They had those space peacocks, and then James Cameron's like, that Snowdrop engine is great. Probably. I don't know. I make movies. Anyway,
I used
Avatar
to.
coming soon,
Yep.
I guess. And then they showed a clip of that one of those cats walking through like a little canyon with its like G-string out. And you're like, all right, well, there's a cat's ass.
Which engine is Snowdrop? I don't know that
The Division.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's a little bit less encouraging.
We're gonna have it's gonna be really they're gonna be crapping dogs everywhere. They're gonna be realistic weather conditions and cop car doors you can shoot through.
I have
maybe.
nothing. I have nothing really against the Division. It's just like that's a engine built for an online shooter.
Yeah,
I think
and it's
it's-
also it didn't really have a ton of verticality.
Right.
Like I mean, you could climb up some buildings in the Division, but like I want an Avatar game where I can scale a 200-foot tall tree and then jump into a lake.
And that's an Assassin's Creed move.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, these guys do have background working on. They worked on I think Assassin's Creed Revelations, I want to say, and the Far Cry 3 multiplayer and co-op. Which I mean, they know how to put some tigers in the jungle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm hoping
Maybe.
this.
I mean.
I'm hoping this isn't like a Division style kind of MMO.
I think it probably will be.
Yeah, that kind of bums me out.
I think the whole thing of being like, oh, we want you to explore the universe of Avatar. It sounds more like, get involved with the universe. You know.
That being said, the best thing about somebody making a game in a franchise that you don't really care about in a genre that you don't really care about is that you can comfortably double pass it without feeling any regret or remorse.
Yeah. But then
Like
again,
if they make a cool Avatar game, I'm all in. Like I'm into that.
That'd be really funny if this hooked you in the same way that Shadow of Mordor did. And that's
Yeah,
the thing,
I mean,
that's another long movie you don't like.
Exactly. I fall in love with games because they're fun, and that's first and foremost
Yeah.
what it's about for me. So even taking a license that I don't care about like this and putting it into something cool, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm just curious, if nothing else, just to see what I don't know what the new Avatar
Yeah.
movies look like.
I'm curious, what is there still an audience for these movies? Are people like who's
totally.
really like you really?
Yeah.
Well, there was that tweet going around last year about like Avatar's the highest grossing movie of all time. Like name one quote from it, and no one could.
You will name a quote from
Unobtainium
Transformers
something.
Well, yeah.
Revenge of the Fallen or whatever.
Transformers roll out.
I mean, the Transformers movies continue to gross more and more money,
Yeah.
and they're less and less Transformers movies.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think
a
the
lot of
difference
it-
is that it's like that's like a 4-decade franchise at this point that has toys and cereal and TV shows.
Yeah.
And
It's also an international audience.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
Yeah. So I think a
boosts
lot
up
of
those
Avatar's
movies.
money came from overseas.
Yep,
Yeah.
completely. But yeah, it's what's interesting is I was thinking about this morning. James Cameron, everyone's like, hurry up, James, come on. No one cares about Avatar anymore. That one came out in 2010. It's like, well, if you look at, Aliens, that came out 7 years after Alien. And
Yeah.
Terminator 2 came out 7 years after Terminator 1.
But that's presuming that Alien, Terminator, and Avatar started out on the same level.
Sure, but he also had to build an entire camera system.
That's true.
I mean, he's
Film those cats.
yeah, he had to create all those weird peacocks up in space.
I'm really kind of curious what they do with those movies, because how many times can you remake Pocahontas?
yeah,
Yeah, it's true. Fern Gully, Pocahontas, Avatar, you're done. That's it.
Holy Trinity.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if this is a game where you're doing free running through trees as a big cat and fighting like tiny men who are like half your size with big machine guns and you get to get helicopters and stuff.
Yeah, it'll probably be like The Division though, but instead of in New York, you're in a jungle and you shoot a cat 70 times in the face and he drops like a pouch that looks better on your butt.
Yeah,
I got a new leather thong for my cat's ass. It's a level 80 leather thong.
in my mind, I went earlier in this conversation. I went from the game Max just described to
Yep.
the game Brian just described. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, that game does not sound good.
Well, I hope it falls between both of those worlds because I want an action adventure game and I love a cool leather thong.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Anyway, World War I, the Great War as it's known in books or whatever. Battlefield 1's got DLC coming on the way. I really love this game.
You're still playing it, right?
I'm still playing Battlefield 1, which is something I didn't really expect, but
You play competitively?
yeah. I mean, I don't think competitive is the right word, but I play online with other people. No, but like
I'm there.
I've been so
I'm
I've
not the
always,
life of the party, but I'm at the party.
I played
I've always-
participatively.
yeah. No, I've always loved the idea of Battlefield, and like it's this big kind of playground. I mean, it's effectively just an open world game where there are people who are better than regular NPCs running around, and you get to maybe ride a horse or a tank or whatever, and they're just adding more and more weird stuff. I'll skip over this because no one else cares about Battlefield but me. But
I like Battlefield.
yeah. They
Bad at it.
Yeah, I'm bad at it too. I got killed by a shovel yesterday. But they added the DLC that's coming up. They're adding they got these things called behemoths, which so far in Battlefield have been like trains. Like if you're basically if your team is losing, they're like, a behemoth is coming to help you, and this train shows up with cannons on it. You're like, man, this is a weird time to be alive. And now they're adding this like giant super tank that's like this giant. It's like a steel behemoth. It's a tank that everyone can climb into, and I think it's just going to be like a tank that fits like 12 people in it, and everyone's just shooting guns out the side.
All aboard.
Yeah, but whereas like the airships are like they're kind of just floating around, and the train is on like a straight line. This is something that can theoretically go all over the map, and this is a little bit of ways. But I think that sounds really interesting. If you're just like your team's winning, and then suddenly this huge tank shows up, and you're like, crap, it's the French. Anyway,
Does playing Battlefield 1 get you excited for Battlefront 2?
Oh God, yeah.
They were excited about that before Battlefield 1.
No, like that was my big problem
too.
with like Battlefront, like going back to that after playing Battlefield 1 and being like, oh man, there are no tauntauns. I cannot ride a horse. The vehicles are like basically just power-ups. They're not actual like things you can interact with. But the second that it's like, 3 people have climbed into this ATST. Like if they make an ATST feel like a Titan in Titanfall,
right,
we've got a really cool thing in our hands.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I don't know if you'd want to ride a tauntaun into battle.
I mean,
maybe more of like a.
I mean, I don't know. The horses in Battlefield are like one of those things where if it like pops up and I'm like, ooh, it's my turn to deploy again. I get a free horse, and there's like a horse there. I'm like, I'm gonna take this horse. I go like running into battle, and I'm like, yeah, I got a sword. Then I run past the guy. I'm like, crap,
Yeah.
I gotta turn around.
It'd be weirder on a taunt. You can't really like stealth. Like taunt, like
I think it's mostly
shut up, skip it down, you space horse.
I like the idea you could like cut it open and camp out inside.
Yeah.
You're like
like if you're losing health, you can cut your horse.
That'd be pretty cool.
It's still alive.
Yeah. I don't know. That's what kind of cracks me up about Battlefield 1 is like it is such a janky time period where they're like, oh no, somebody threw gas everywhere. We're all coughing, and you're like, gotta put on your funny hats, and you're like, all right, you can run really fast and stab somebody with the sword you put on the front of your, and it's like it's stuff that was kind of like that gap between like old fashioned and modern warfare. But I mean, there's like you can literally get paper mache heads in that game to distract people who think you're snipers. Like they were like, I've got a great idea. Let's make a piñata. That'll fool those guys. There's a mode where you catch pigeons. Like it's so weird. It's so totally like on the same level of weirdness as Star Wars.
Yep.
Like the fact you're like, oh cool, I finally got that pickup that lets me be a bear. Like the bear can smell very well, so he knows where everyone on the map is.
Is that real?
No, that's Bosk. The lizard.
Okay.
Sorry, the lizard can smell very well. Anyway, this morning, another big thing, Nintendo had a direct and they talked a bunch about all of the indie stuff that's coming to Switch. And obviously this is a PlayStation podcast, but it kind of got me thinking, is the Switch kind of the future of the Vita's like library?
Is it like the new Vita?
Is it the new portable indie machine?
Or is this where all the Vita support will end up?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they're going that direction.
What's left of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Vita turned out to be a great little portable indie device.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're alluding to. So, I mean, there seems to be a lot of really cool indie stuff coming to the Switch, and people have noted that there's still a lack of third-party support. But if you're getting like big Nintendo first-party releases and then just a big flood of like cool indie stuff, that sounds like a system that I would be happy with.
I mean, it sounds a lot like what we got with the Vita.
Yeah,
where you'd
I
be
think
like,
we would get like Uncharted and the Killzone here and there, and some other big ones, some AAA stuff from Sony, and then indie stuff here and there. And I think we got early on some third-party support for Vita in terms of like you look at like the sort of Assassin's Creed games that they made from the ground up, stuff that you normally wouldn't really expect on a handheld. And I think ultimately that's the way people will remember this system, is looking at it as a couple big tentpole video games, and then just this wide variety of cool, quirky, weird indie stuff.
Yeah.
One of my big concerns about the Switch right now is that it has Zelda and pretty much nothing else out of the gate until Mario Odyssey happens in the holiday period. So without a kind of a cushion of indies to ride on, like remember those old hovercraft, remote control hovercraft,
Yeah.
and ride on a cushion of air.
Yep.
The Switch needs one of those, but made out of indies.
Yep.
That will coast it along, because otherwise it's gonna have a super slow start.
I think if you look at the attach rate on the Vita, it's something probably Nintendo would kill for with the Switch. People would buy a Vita and then buy like 12, 13 games for it. The fact that when I pick up my Vita, there's like 1 or 2 games on there that are like full sort of meaty retail size games, and the rest are like, that was my favorite place to play crap like Hotline Miami.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. Yeah.
You know, Sound Shapes.
Yeah.
And
No, I mean, I think that like,
Guacamole.
it's like going to like a fancy restaurant that does like a lot of little courses, as opposed to like, you know, you sit, let me sit down and get that huge platter of like, there's a big thing that I'll have, like, I'll eat all of it and I'll be like, oh, I'm full, you know. It's just like a console experience. Whereas if you're like, oh, every blank amount of time someone brings you like a small thing and you're like, this is really fun and cool. What's the next thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like Sony was dropping weird little like tidbits of, you know, weird little Vita games here and there for, you know, like every month or so.
It's like dim sum.
Yeah,
It's like dim sum.
Yeah, no, that's
one
what we're doing.
one thing the Switch has working against it in that regard, though, relative to the Vita, is the Switch is a little bit bigger than the Vita.
Right.
So the Switch is harder to throw in your pocket and take
Sure.
with you
Sure.
wherever you want to go, and that's the kind of thing you want to do when you're away from your main home console. You know, not necessarily those style of games are things you play on the go usually.
Yep.
On the flip side, there's also the opportunity for multiplayer stuff, which the Vita never really had going for it. We're getting, I mean, the Switch is getting like Stardew Valley, and it's getting Duck Game and like weird little games that are overcooked even, which is like stuff that you need to buy, you know, for $50 controllers to play 4-player co-op with, and you know, makes a ton of sense.
Also worth noting that a lot of those games announced today will probably come to PlayStation 2.
Oh, totally.
SteamWorld Dig 2 will totally come to.
If they're not there already.
If they're not there already,
I'll be very surprised if we get some of those games on Vita, though. You know,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
the
just,
thing.
I mean, I've been a huge handheld gamer since I was a little kid, since the original Game Boy came out. The first time I played a game like Link's Awakening or Pokemon, where I was like, you can do a like full fleshed out console game on a handheld. So it's good to see the Vita kept that alive for many years, Nintendo kept that alive, and now the Switch is keeping that going. And I'm hoping that gamers connect with it and it sends a message that that there's a market for this stuff, and that, you know, I mean, I loved the PSP. I loved the PSP Go. I love the Vita. Like, I would like to see another handheld from Sony at some point. Part of me tells me that it'll never happen again, but part of me is like, maybe keep hope alive. Like, who knows? Like, if this, like, I'm supporting the Switch in hopes that, first of all, I'll get a bunch of good games out of it and it'll be really fun. And I love what Nintendo does, but also that it sends a message that there's still a market for this and that Sony can keep that side of things going too. Because I think them making a bunch of weird indie stuff for PS4, it happens. It's kind of a dime a dozen. I mean, especially on PlayStation Plus. But when you look at the Vita, it was a place where stuff like that could really shine. So I hope they can build a home for that in the future.
So I pulled questions from the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/podcastbeyond, or just groups.net/podcasts. Not really. But yes, Jasper Garland said, what are you guys currently playing on your Vita? I actually had like a weird little run-in with my Vita the other night. I'd wiped my memory card because I had a bunch of crap on there and it was just easier to like just clean it out entirely. What I didn't realize is that trying to re-download things onto that is just a nightmare process. Like, it is really bad.
From the store? PlayStation
From the store, yeah. So I was like, the first thing I did, I was like, I'll just go to the that old download queue they have on like the Sony website and just queue up a bunch of things I need downloaded from my library. For whatever reason, that doesn't, or I couldn't find the way to do that because you have to go through like 3 different approaches.
Well,
there.
it's interesting because the Vita UI and interface was basically a step up from what the PS3 was doing at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know the last time you guys have turned on a PS3, but we are very spoiled now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we have it really good.
Yep.
But when you go back to the Vita, you're like, oh, that's not nearly at PS4 levels.
Yeah.
Accessing your library is not as nearly as quick or intuitive.
Well, no, it's messed up because you basically, like, there's no library tab. There's no, like, here's all the stuff you own. And so you pretty much have to go through games manually and be like, oh, it doesn't have a price tag. I guess I own that. Unless you don't. And then they're like, please give us money. And I was like, I thought I bought that. Oh, well. But it got me thinking, like, all the stuff that the Vita could have done better, you know? And I don't want to, like, kick it while it's down, but, like, there's some stuff in there that from day one, it's just like, oh, why didn't you do that differently?
I mean, the back touch panels right off the bat were something that never should have been okayed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
there was basically no games where I was like, oh, that was a good idea.
That's how we found our way to the golden abyss.
I can massage the back of the
Yeah.
I mean, they barely use the touchpad on the DualShock 4.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing that has basically been a glorified fat map button now. Like even in Horizon, it's just like map.
Yeah,
like you're not really using it for anything else.
It's crazy because like the Vita was developed by Mark Cerny, who also did the PS4, and I imagine at some point he was doing both of them at once and trying to be like, okay, what does what?
You could say he has a real knack for design.
Ooh, terrible. Yeah, like
Dude loves touchpads. We know that.
I mean, how cool would it have been if the Vita was able to just double as a controller?
Yep.
You know, if they'd like bothered to make a second button on there and just, I don't know, Bluetooth in or whatever.
It was
yes, yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not nearly as good as a DualShock.
It was so close. Like there's been times where Sony's had this weird communication problem with its devices in the last few years. The porting stuff from consoles to Vita was difficult because it was missing the buttons it needed, so you had to use back touch. If you look at the way PSVR and PS4 Pro and 4K and HDR don't really communicate well, hooking your Vita up to a TV or PlayStation View or PlayStation TV sort of works as like a second screen experience, and then there's remote play that kind of works in many ways, but also doesn't in many ways. Like they've been so close in so many ways. It's why I kind of like that Nintendo with the Switch is kind of just like, all right, I think we solved this.
Yeah.
Sort of. I think we kind of got this. But it's hard to get all your systems to communicate. And it's still like a kind of holdover from when people were plugging their Game Boy Advance SPs into their GameCubes years ago to like play Crystal Chronicles and crap like that.
And Nintendo's doing it by saying, okay, this is our only system.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy, but also smart.
Yeah.
I mean, remember how like months before the Vita dropped, they were like, we've got a new PlayStation phone, the Xperia Play, developed by Ericsson.
Yeah, I played
we bought.
I played Minecraft on their Xperia Play phone at TGS a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, Minecraft wasn't even out for Vita at the time. And it was like, why is this on Vita?
But then they were
why
like,
is this on the Xperia Play phone?
When the Vita went up for pre-order just a little over 5 years ago, actually, I think it came out, I think it was like last week, 5 years ago. They were like, you can pre-order the 3G version, which you'll need a wireless coverage plan for, or just the regular version. And it was like, is it a phone?
Yeah.
Do I call people on my new PSP? Like what?
We see that a lot at launches too. Like when the PS3 launched, they're like, here's the 60 gigabyte version. It's the only one with backwards compatibility. And we're like, oh, cool. And then that just went away. It got retired basically. And then you never saw that again. So that's actually like the rarest of the SKUs at this point.
I kept waiting for somebody to make, maybe some dudes out of Hong Kong to make an adapter for like a Vita memory card that you could slip like a micro SD card into.
Yep.
Never happened. I don't know what the guts were there, but
And Sony won't allow that because they got their proprietary technology.
of course they love it. They love the proprietary stuff.
Yeah, because we can sell it. We can charge anything we want for it. No one can undercut us.
That never went down. That price really never went down.
Yeah.
Dude,
It's
I bought a
Super dumb.
What is it? A PS TV? Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically it's a Vita with a PS3 controller.
I got one of those for $15, and then I went to put a memory card in it, and the memory card was more than a PS4.
Right?
I was like, get out of here.
Yeah. No, I bought one. I think it was $27,
Yep.
and the cheapest Vita memory card was like over 35, and I was like, why did I buy this? What am I doing?
That's somewhere where the Switch does have it beat. Just use an SD card.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, on to rapid fire.
We didn't answer the question. What we're currently
So that's
playing.
what we're currently playing on.
I'm currently
Complainer,
playing
2017.
Yeah, PlayStation Store.
I've actually gone back to Disgaea 4.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you're really big into that.
Yeah, I love those games. You can play them forever. And Disgaea 5 is coming out again on Switch, so I'll be moving on to that one soon. So just spending some time with Disgaea 4.
I think it's the perfect franchise for handhelds.
It's great. It's the only thing I need to take on a plane.
Yeah.
No matter how long the flight is, just one Disgaea game, and I can just play it the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah, I played a bit of Hotline Miami again, and it's kind of crazy how much of that game is muscle memory and how like jumping back into it and being like, yeah, I got pretty good at this, and then being like, this is a tutorial, and I'm dying repeatedly.
Yep.
This sucks. So maybe I'll practice.
There was some insane sale a couple months back where they put like every Star Wars game that's ever been on Vita went on there for like $16.
Oh yeah.
So I bought this bundle and I just started digging through it the other day, and it's weird stuff. Like it's like Lego Clone Wars 2 and like some like remixed version of like Portable Battlefront. Like, and I just started playing that, and I was like, "This is really awesome!" Like, because I was sort of like watching people react to when Battlefront came out about what they didn't like about it, and one of the big things that they ended up patching in later was that you couldn't fight bots. Like you couldn't fight offline bots. To me, I was like, I don't see the difference in going online and fighting human beings that kill me.
Oh, there's a big difference.
Is there? Why? Because they're dumber?
Yeah, like you get to be the superhero in that and just kill everything.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
Well, get good.
Yeah, and also if you don't have a reliable internet connection, that sucks.
That's
but
true.
yeah, and just being able to run around as a Jedi against a bunch of dumb bots who you can just slaughter.
Yeah. So I went.
It just made it Dynasty Warriors, basically.
Yeah, basically.
So I went back and I was playing Battlefront on my Vita, which I believe was a PSP game that got upported because it does that weird thing where like it resets and gets letterboxed and all this other stuff, and the buttons are all wrong. But it was really fun. Like it was just like, this is really goofy. It's low res. Like fighting stormtroopers, no matter how low poly they are, still kind of look stormtroopery. So yeah, it was a good time.
And what Vita?
Dan, what
game
are you playing?
Yeah,
Your
we're not
Vita.
playing on your Vita.
Oh, what haven't I been playing? I do not own a Vita.
You never had one, right? No. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame anybody that comfortably passed on that thing.
I'm not a handheld guy.
Got it.
I did own the 1989 Game Boy, but that was the last one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I just ordered one of those to the office for the Up at Noon set.
I've still got mine.
The original.
Oh, sweet. The original.
Gray one.
Yeah, there's a guy on eBay that redoes them and like puts in brand new screens and glass covers and stuff like that, which made me really excited for like the modding scene for PSPs, PSP Goes, and Vitas in a couple years, because I think people are going to be like,
Oh God, yeah.
like kitting those things out on eBay for
they
like
put, like,
$70.
Raspberry Pis in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine needs a new screen because it's just all like solid white lines through it.
So, Phil Mansfield, going back to this, thoughts on people potentially forgetting Horizon Zero Dawn due to Zelda dropping a few days later. Don't think that's a big issue.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
if you were going
problem.
if you were going to buy a Switch on day one, then sure.
Yeah.
But not everybody is. Like a bunch of people will, but not everybody is. There are 50 million PS4s out there, and there are going to be maybe 2 million Switches for the first couple months.
Yeah.
So
and that's being generous.
Plus a couple Wii
And then,
U's.
there's 13 million Wii U's out
13
there.
or 14 Wii U's. Yep.
So yeah, I mean that'd be interesting. Then again, there's also the fact that Zelda's a 30-plus-year-old series that people love and adore, and like, maybe they'll jump on that before a new IP that's Sony.
That's a $360 buy-in. For
exactly.
to play Zelda if you don't already own a Wii U.
Yep. Yeah. That being said, there's a couple people in the office who have put significant time into both, and all I've heard from everybody is they are very different games.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to put them together because it's like a...
They both have archery.
You both play as a beautiful redheaded woman.
Yeah. I mean, you play as a beautiful woman-looking character holding a bow and arrow who has to go hunting weird monsters.
Yeah.
But and they are giant open-world games with mountains. But other than that, I think they're very, very different. I don't really think one's going to cannibalize the other. If anything, I think that if you own a PlayStation and you don't own a Nintendo system, you're probably going to get a pretty significant Zelda fix from Horizon. Like it felt Zelda-ish enough to me.
It has dungeons.
Yeah, it's got dungeons.
They're not the same though. They're not like puzzle dungeons.
No, they're
It doesn't have Zelda's puzzles.
They feel more like the tombs in like Assassin's Creed games or something like that, or in I mean, not even in Tomb Raider, because Tomb Raider like has a lot of puzzles in the tombs.
Yeah,
the world in Zelda is so much more interactive in so many different ways than Horizon's is. Like it's just a very different style of play all the way around.
Yeah, and it's like obviously the graphics in Breath of the Wild are sort of like more subtle. They are like more cartoony, more like kind of just like 80s Japanese animation inspired, whereas Horizon looks photorealistic at times. Like
on a PS4 Pro.
On a PS4 Pro, it's just absolutely stunning. So I don't know. Like, if you have the opportunity to play both, like please play both, because they are both awesome games, and I can't imagine skipping one. I mean, rent one, go to Redbox and put $5 in and take it. Leave a fake name, steal it.
Go to your friends. Go to your friend's house. Make some friends.
Go to jail. Talk to your friends in jail about
Make
video
friends
games.
with strangers. Go on out of the parking lot. Talk to people.
Do
See what
like
they're up
20 to 40 years.
Yeah.
Good cold hard time.
Yeah.
Go to one of those jails that has video games.
I think those are called hospitals. And Selma Ortega says, how can we make super hot VR on PSVR happen? This is a game that I've been dying to play, and I have a VR hat, and I would like to play
Dan,
it.
you love this game, right?
I'll set you up right out there. After.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, we have them in the office.
Yeah. So that game is published by Oculus.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
So like Oculus has a game publishing arm, so they do a bunch of these little projects just to they're trying to kickstart VR, but because they're paying for it, they are locking it to their system.
So we'll never ever see it on PSVR.
Not necessarily never, but I mean it could be a timed exclusivity thing. It depends on the deal they struck with them, which I don't know the details of. Who knows how much money they pumped into it.
Yeah, this is like asking for Halo on PlayStation, right?
Yeah.
Not quite that bad.
Yeah.
But
Quite
close.
Okay.
It is very cool. And actually, I was at the DICE Awards in Vegas last week, and Super Hot VR won Best VR Game of.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is pretty crazy. I had a buddy over just to drink beer and play video games last weekend, and I set him up with that, and he was like, oh yeah, I've got the Google Daydream or Gear VR or whatever he was messing with.
You're about to get dunked on, dude.
It's like, no, you have no idea what VR game is yet.
Yeah.
And he was just super impressed by that.
What about control wise though? Because I know you reviewed PSVR and Oculus, right?
Yep.
And so you pretty much understand VR hardware here at IGN better than anybody. Was this game something that could work well with Move controllers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's all you really do is point and grab. So I mean, it's the same kind of pointing and shooting you saw in. I've forgotten the name of the PSVR launch games already. The
Shoot pointer.
Getaway.
the getaway driving.
Why are we
one.
forgetting the name of this game? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The London heist. Something heist. Yeah. That one did pointing and shooting fairly well. And there's also the horror one.
Rush of Blood or whatever.
Yeah, it's Rush of Blood.
Yep.
Until Dawn.
Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, yes. That one also behaved fairly well for shooting. And this is kind of the same thing. The difference is that, it only moves when you move. And it's even different from the...
Also, aesthetically, it's really stylized, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's super simple, which makes it great for VR because...
So it's not like it's going to just suddenly make you want to puke because it gets kicked down a few polygons or whatever.
But the idea of it is that you can... And it works differently in VR than it does on consoles, where they only move when you are moving physically, like your character is moving in a direction.
Right.
They'll move if you're moving your arms or your head.
Okay.
Ooh.
And so it's basically like freeze frame bullet time video game where you can shoot and throw projectiles and
Mr. Fox, what time is it?
Yeah, and you can throw projectiles. You can't catch other people's bullets in this one.
Okay.
But you can.
Can you catch bullets in your teeth?
No.
That sucks.
You need teeth trackers for that. They're working on it. But you can Neo out of the way of things. And I like to think of it as like a simulator for you see all those action movies like John Wick where he's making all these instantaneous decisions about I'm going to take out that guy, then that guy, then that guy, then that guy, and I'm going to throw this at that guy while I reload. It's that kind of thing, except you get to take all the time you want between those moves.
It's pretty cool.
Just to think about what you're doing next.
It's rad. Well, anyway, anecdotally, good news. PlayStation VR sold through 915,000 units worldwide as of February 19th, 2017, which is good news.
Very good news.
Sony's been trying to get more of those out there in the wild. They're not pulling a Vita here, apparently. And currently there are more than 220 software titles and content in development for PSVR, with highly anticipated launches on the way, including Ace Combat 7, Final Fantasy 15, Steel Combat, Tekken 7, Farpoint. Anyway, and by the end of 2017, over 100 new software titles and experiences are expected to be released. And of course, there's going to be a ton of weird indie stuff coming out of GDC and PAX. And
these are great sales numbers for something that Sony has actively been not trying to sell. Like this thing has not been in stores. Max, you got one recently and you said your fiance got it for you and it was a pain in the ass to find.
Yeah, right? Which is sort of good and bad.
Yeah,
I
guess so.
I think that it's sort of like I don't think it's manufactured scarcity, but they don't it's better business to be in high demand than to be like gathering dust on shelves.
Yes.
Like gather dust in my house because I haven't set that camera up properly. Yeah.
And regardless of the perception that like you don't want a bunch of them sitting on shelves and making people feel like they're not being desired. I mean, it's just super expensive to have all that inventory and not moving it.
Especially a box of that size. It's a big ass box.
Big box.
Call it the NES Classic method.
Yeah.
Selling consoles.
Well, no, it's kind of like
And then
the
just
whole,
retire it halfway through.
It's kind of like the whole nightclub mentality of like if you have a line outside the door, people are like, "Ooh, what's that in there?" And it's like there might be 3 people in there, like being like, "This party sucks," but there's a line outside, so there's that. Paul Sanchez is 2017 one of the best years of video games? It's a really good year so far.
I'm going to say that I already like 2017 better than all of 2016.
Yeah. I don't think 2016 was a particularly great year for games.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk here from people like Jared Petty, which luckily we just got rid of him.
Yeah.
No, I love you, Jared. We were saying like 2016 is the best year of video games, and I'm like, nah, not even close. No. Like so far this year, I've played through Resident Evil 7, Neo, Horizon. I'm about to start Zelda, and a brand new console is launching with it. Like,
I'm gonna throw Gravity Rush 2 in there.
Gravity Rush, yeah. Like, we're just getting started. Especially if you just look at
Zero,
just look at PlayStation exclusives so far. We've gotten a ton. So, it's been a really cool year. It could all go to hell by the end of the year, but when I have like,
dude, if that new Mario game actually comes out, and we get a new Zelda and a new Mario game this year.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
also,
pretty awesome.
I mean, the fact that we're
Mordor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're getting like things like that are leaking like. And E3 hasn't even, approached yet.
Yep. Getting a new Mass Effect.
Yeah.
It's February and it feels like November.
Yep.
That's how this feels right now. Like, it's a pretty cool problem to have. The fact that one of our questions, and one of the most asked questions in the last few weeks is like, Horizon and Zelda, what do I do? Like, this doesn't feel like a February question, a March question.
Yeah.
This feels like it's Christmas and I can only pick one.
Yeah.
So this is a good problem to have. I think like Horizon Zero Dawn is one of my favorite games of this generation, if not my favorite. It's up there probably with Bloodborne. I think Bloodborne edges it out slightly. But the fact that we're a month and a half into this year and I have a favorite game of not only this year so far, but definitely everything last year, shows we can only go up from here.
Yeah, last year I got Civilization 6 and XCOM 2, so that was a pretty big year for me.
That's a Dan Stapleton ass year, right?
Chris Waterman says, what do you think the historical cutoff is for Call of Duty? Would you play a Call of Duty Civil War? Well, they made a Far Cry game about cavemen, so I think anything's
I'd
possible.
go back that far.
Yeah.
Actually,
I mean,
what would that be like?
Civil War, like the weapons are so different. Like the pace of it is so different.
Yeah, there have been Civil War games.
The Call of Duty gameplay just wouldn't map to that.
I just don't think. I think COD is such a kind of very gradual and safe series. Like they're like, we've added jumping higher. Or they'll change like little things and they'll be kind of like a cosmetic do-over.
This one's
but
5 years further in the future.
Yeah. The warfare is now infinite instead of just modern or advanced. But
it really feels like when a 5-year-old kid's like, "Oh, I have an $11 billion at home.
I have 12 billion."
But yeah, so I think that
they're just like one-upping each other.
I'd love to see Call of Duty like do something like that. It'd be kind of cool to see them do like a. Maybe kind of almost a BioShock approach where it's like set in an old time setting, but with weird modern twists to it.
Isn't that kind of what Black Ops was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
they've done some weird stuff in that.
Also, zombies. You get Jeff Goldblum as a magician. You're running around with like crazy guns.
Yeah,
I
think
like the cutoff is basically World War I because that's when they started introducing automatic weapons, and you can't have a Call of Duty without automatic weapons.
You can't.
That's
the essence of Call of Duty.
I think so.
I think it's gotten so fast and so twitchy and so jumpy that going backwards at this point is like you basically have to invent a new franchise. Like if Activision was just like, we have a new shooter franchise and it's slow and methodical and weird and BioShocky and there's apes.
It was never like even original Call of Duty was not slow and methodical. I mean, by comparison. Yes, but I mean they've already said this year like we're going back to our roots, whatever that means. They could be hinting at going back to World War II.
No more jumping on the walls.
Get down from there, you rascals.
Boys, get off the ceiling.
But they could be going back to World War II. They could be going to Vietnam. They could be going to Korea. That one hasn't been done very much.
Yeah,
but
I will never just completely write off that series. I'm always sort of vaguely interested in what they're doing next. But I think the days of me playing, at least through the campaign every single year, have been gone for a few years now. I'd love to reconnect with it, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're probably just going to start a land war in Asia.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's how war works. I don't know. I think that it'd be really cool to see like a Civil War game that uses some modern sensibilities, but like there's that whole emphasis on like survival games. James Duggan was posting on Twitter this weekend about this pirate game or this seafaring game that kind of looks like a more realistic Sea of Thieves, where basically you've got a whole bunch of people crewing a ship. And I was like, are we really at that point where the most fun games are based on like arguably the least fun things? Like we have a game called Don't Starve that people love. It's a game about trying not to starve.
No, we're like 6 months away from like Help Your Friend Move 2017. Yeah. Where like 4 guys have to lift a couch.
Or that like one where James Franco gets like stuck in a crevasse. You gotta like eat your own arm.
We're very close to Farming Simulator 2018.
Yeah. That's a thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know.
Popular series, right?
Yeah, but that'd be kind of a fun game. Is Civil War, and you get the bad bathroom stuff going on, and people can't shoot you while you're crapping because that would be bad form and ungentlemanly.
Great work, Max.
Yeah. Anyway, Hosea Byler says, "Tell me about Horizon in comparison to Zelda." We already did. Way ahead of you.
Play both if you can. Steal it. Steal one. Go to jail. Play the other when you get out.
What about Horizon in comparison to Tomb Raider? You like it better than both recent Tomb Raider games?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna flat out say yes.
The combat is way better.
Yeah, it really is. I think I like Lara as a whole better. Like I think that maybe it's cheating, right? Because I've had a connection to that character since
Cheating on Lara?
Cheating on Lara since like 6th grade, where I was like, oh, she's got boobs. I like those. I like triangles too, and they're the same thing. But I think that Horizon is doing something that I think it's surpassing Tomb Raider. I think it's surpassing Uncharted in terms of what it's actually accomplishing. The open world stuff, the beauty of it all, the sort of diversity in combat. I love robots, so that's always fun. I think Uncharted's got a better story, but what can you do?
So Tomb Raider has had dinosaurs in it in the past. What if the next Tomb Raider is a full-blown open world game that has dinosaurs running around?
I'm totally into that. I'm totally into that. I mean, I think they kind of have to, because like Horizon has scripted segments that feel Tomb Raider-y, where things collapse and fall. I mean, they're not really as QTE driven, where Aloy is like shuffling down this like rocky hallway as everything explodes, but it's doing a lot of really cool stuff. So I think that, like, I don't know, we compared Tomb Raider and Uncharted for years, and Horizon's just kind of like, hey, what's up?
At this point, like, if you had asked that when Tomb Raider had just been rebooted, like, I think the comparison would have been much closer.
Yeah,
like, combat's still better in Horizon, but just the fact that Horizon is doing a bunch of not necessarily new things, but combining things in new ways.
Yeah.
It feels much fresher than anything like Uncharted does.
Yeah.
Where Uncharted is very iterative, and it's changing things, but it's still the fundamentally same thing.
I'm also getting that itch that I got in Uncharted 4, where I was like, I want to go treasure hunting. I want to find stuff, but I'm doing that in an open world, and climbing is something you can do in this game. Zip lining is something you can do in this game, like rappelling, like all of these cool things. And a lot of those are sort of like QTEs. They're kind of context sensitive actions, but yeah, it's scratching that Tomb Raider itch, that Uncharted itch, and I think it's surpassing.
It's called tetanus.
It is tetanus, yeah. And it's surpassing it in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I'm really excited we get new installments of all of these games, hopefully for a long time.
But man, when you play some Zelda and then go back to playing Horizon, not being able to climb absolutely everything drives you nuts.
Ooh, really? So you can kind of do that in Horizon. You just have to jump weirdly up everything diagonally. Have you tried doing that? It's really janky.
Mixed results.
But you get up there sometimes.
Yeah, it's Skyrim climbing.
Link is just like a gecko, though.
Yeah.
He can actually climb like kind of like this. Like,
yeah, but he gets sleepy like a big baby and falls, and Aloy never does.
That's true.
She just gets
sprint
cold.
forever, right?
She can sprint forever.
Yeah. Right. Well, there you go. So Horizon's out in the wild. Head on over to the Podcast Beyond Facebook group. It's facebook.com/group/Podcast Beyond. I'm sure a lot of people over there are going to be having a great time with this wacky dinosaur robot hunting game. You can find us all on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. Brian, your Agent Bizzle. Damon, you're Dame Zero. Like Dame Judi Dench.
Yep.
Like spelled differently.
Just like
and Dan, you're just Dan Stapleton?
I am.
There you go.
Just
I want to plug our wikis and guides for Horizon real quick, because they're phenomenal. We've got huge maps. We've got tons of videos to help you find all the cool secret stuff. If you get stuck in that game, or you get lost in that game, and you're fighting a big, bad, evil robot man and you can't kill him, go right there, because they've been very helpful.
Those wiki kids have been knocking themselves out.
Well, yeah. I was going to say, we also are going to have an awesome guide for Zelda.
Yeah.
We'll be playing that too. So.
I heard it's like fully interactive and all this stuff. Cool. So yeah, it's nuts. This is the place to be.
Yo, it's like March tomorrow, and it's already really great time for video games. So that's good news.
2017 rules.
Yeah. All right. On that note,
2016.
Yeah. Yes. Take that, you old year. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
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 Beyond.
Beyond.
On.